All right, we're going to pick up right there at the listing agreements and talk a little bit about, we can talk about the form as if you guys want to get more into the form specifically, because obviously they have changed. We're also going to talk about how you would fill maybe some of them out. And once again, remember, conversational kind of course. So if you have questions, let's go through questions or real life examples so that we know what we're doing rather than me just stand up here and preach to you for a couple hours. See? Curious as to why everybody's moving to the back of the room. Because I'm so loud?
Honestly, because I had to go past all three of those to get to one of those seats in the center.
Oh, I see.
This was the seat of least resistance.
Okay, we spent enough time with you.
So tomorrow, what I will do is only have 4 chairs and move everybody to the front.
Move your microphone.
Yes, move my mic, dangle the microphone. All right, let's talk a little bit about the listing agreement and the parties to the contract. Remember we talked yesterday about what a contract is. It's a legal obligation between 2 parties. And in the listing agreement, the contract 2 parties are whom? In a listing agreement, it would be the agent and the seller. All right? Who's the agent? No.
The broker.
That's right. It's not you. It's me. Remember? Mine. It's all mine. My listing, my money, my clients, my commission, all of that. Therefore, you guys don't even sign the listings. Have you caught on to that yet, right? You take the listing out, you get it signed by your client, you bring it back to the broker, now the broker, I sign it, then 3 days to get that back to them. Now, what I do with some of my agents that have been in the business long enough, and I hate to use the word trust, is I pre-sign the listing agreement. They'll come to me or they'll send me the form and let me look at it and say, here's what we're listing. We can then sign it. So they take 2 signed copies with them when they go out there. And they get one signed by the client and leave one there that's already signed. And then bring the other one back to the originals to me. All right? On that, you have to name the sellers. You guys run into the husband and wife arguments yet? Not yet? Nobody's run into that yet, where one doesn't want to sign or one they're getting divorced and don't want to sign? You still need both signatures on that form, both husband and wife, whoever's on the title. Even if they're not on the title, sometimes you still need the husband and wife to sign, right? And you guys remember what that law is called? Tenants by the entirety. Husband and wife own the property. So you may have to get both signatures, even though maybe the husband or the wife is the one on the title, or is the one on the tax when you pull the tax form. The other thing to that is remember who is actually on the tax form. The good thing about listing is it's a predetermined thing, meaning you get time to work up to it. No one ever calls and says, I'm in the driveway, I'm in your parking lot, come sign the listing. You know, it's usually, hey, be at my house tomorrow at 5 o'clock, let's sign the listing. That allows you guys to get ready for that. And one of the things you do is you pull off the new tax, who's the actual owner of record. Doesn't mean they're the actual owner. Hopefully the names on the title, or I keep saying that, I apologize. The names on the tax record match your client's name. So I'm assuming no one's run into that issue yet either. You have?
Yeah, where both the parents were deceased and they left the property to 1 out of 5 children to be basically the executor of what happens to the property. But once it's sold, the funds have to be dispersed to all members of the living.
Right, so you did an estate sale. Yeah, where you dealt with the executor who had the power to sign for the parents. All right.
It's a little weird. I didn't know if attorney should be brought in or not, but I mean, I was able to clearly see that she had power of attorney. She had medical power of attorney, and the will, like, flat out just said that she's the one who's in charge of all the assets, but any monies rendered through those assets has to be distributed amongst the
All right. Have you listed and sold that house already?
No.
Okay.
Well, I listed it, but I haven't sold it.
But we haven't sold it yet. Because I wonder how the title company is going to handle that. Are they going to, have you talked to the title company to seek if they want some attorney document to say, are they going to cut 5 checks? Are they going to cut 1 check to the executor? And I mean, I'm asking, I don't know, because I'd be curious to see how they're going to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, I haven't really, I got it listed, I'm trying to find this. I honestly thought, I was just kind of concerned because like, am I legally in a position where I can make the, decision that this property is free and clear for her to sell based on the documents I'm looking at, which are legal documents, you know?
Just did it with my grandma's house, and she was the executor, and she was in control of all of it, and everything got signed to her.
Yeah.
That's how it's
Did the title company ask for the will or the power of attorney?
I think they asked for it. She
Yeah.
sent it to 'em.
Yeah. The answer is no, you're not in the decision to make that.
The thing for me was like, can I even list this? You know, should I bring in, I mean, I wasn't really sure how, but, I mean, my broker said, like, you've got the documentation.
Yeah.
Clearly has the right to convey the property, so you need, you know, this.
I would probably ask for a copy of that to put in your records so that you have that trail that someone say, well, you sold Bob Smith's house, but Sally Jones signed the paperwork. Yeah, well, we have a document saying Sally Jones had the power for Bob Smith.
My dad's house, I was power of attorney, and I went and got it and signed everything.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how it works at the closing because I just figured that the check would be cut to her and then it would be up to her to legally uphold what she's supposed to do with that will, or is it
Yeah.
up to the title company?
That's how ours was. Ours was cut to one person.
That's what I thought, and then it's up to her legally to disperse that.
Yeah.
You can sue her.
And I don't, yeah, you're not going to get involved in that.
That's exactly what I tried to stay out of. So
Yeah.
I just have her as the one getting the money for the sale.
Do they have it set up in the state?
It's just a recorded will. That's it. Recorded with Marion County.
Yeah. And that's down at the recorder's office when we talked about that before. Don't forget you've got license law issues when you start signing a listing contract. The biggest one is the written office policy where you guys describe the agency. Seeing a lot of deer in the headlight look. Technically, that is the rule that you have to give them before you even sign the listing agreement, right? If I wanted to talk to you guys about a power positive coefficient on a nuclear reactor, we could do that all day. But before we do that, I probably should explain to you what a power positive coefficient means so that you could talk in that. That's what the written office document is. You can't talk to your client about agency if they don't know what agency is. So you have a written office policy which explains the 3 types of agency. You've got listing agency, selling agency, and then what's the last one? Limited agency. You all are with me, right? Okay, we're all speaking English today. You guys have your clients sign this? Yes. So before they can actually sign a listing agreement creating agency with you, you have to explain to them what agency is. That is called the written office policy. That document levels the playing field so that everybody understands when I tell my client I'm their agent and I'm their listing agent, they know that listing agent means I represent them, I can't give away any information about them, I got my fiduciary responsibilities, yada, yada, yada. And if I become limited agency by bringing a buyer, here's what the limited agency means. And it's the same form you would use for your buyer. Before you sign the buyer's agency, you have to sign the written office policy, which explains as a buyer's agent, I represent you, I can't tell anything about it, and give away any of your secrets or all of that. So that is called the written office policy. You guys probably had it already in your forms. This has been in rules now, I don't know, 04, 05, or 06, somewhere around in there where we had to start coming up with these. So I'm hoping you guys have that. And the other one is the limited agency form. How many of the groups that you guys work in don't do limited agency? Anybody? Because like for instance, I know there's a couple guys on the south side that won't do limited agent. When someone calls, they hand it to a buyer. Or they hand it to a buyer's agent. They don't want to do that limited agency and get caught up in it. They get in the in-house agency, which does not trigger limited agent.
Now, with us, with me being on Don's team, if Don has the listing and I have the buyer, they still have to sign limited with the agency.
Is that something Remax is making you do?
No, that's something Don does to protect us because they want she wants to make sure that she knows that although I'm the buyer's rep and she's the listing agent, we're under the same canopy.
That on the surface, that seems like that's very protective. I think that may also be detrimental, though. Because as limited agent, remember, there are things that you guys can't do. You can't give advice. You can only give statistical facts. Here's what sells. And that's where the term limited comes from. You actually become limited in your ability to help a person. Legally, I understand that you think you're on Dawn's team. Technically, you're not. Because your license is being held by the managing broker. Dawn's license is being held by the managing broker. Dawn is not holding your license. That would make her a managing broker, and she can't be because she's under whoever that new person is. So while I think that that may be good on the surface, and she's trying to show some protection, I don't think legally that's required by a team member. There's another guy around here that I don't want to mention his name, especially since we're recording. That's why. But everybody writes under his name, so it's always him. All right? In that particular situation, he wants to split them, so he has a separate dedicated buyer's agent that does all the buyers, and that does not trigger. That is the in-house agency. All right? So keep that in mind. The listing agreement is a contract. It's a contract between me and the seller. Same thing applies. Offer and acceptance. This is when you guys start getting into that negotiation of, hey, we'll do it for 7%. And they go, oh, well, the other guy will do it for 6. Will you do it for? Okay, I'll do it for 6. That's an offer and a counter offer. All right, and then when you sign it, that's the acceptance portion. So we still have that same mechanism in there called the offer and the counter offer when they're forming the listing contract with your client. In that listing contract are all the rules. It gives the power to me. They talk about the compensation in that contract, remember, is my commission. And I can do it for free because we do have a bond of trust in there. So it's not an arm's length transaction like the sale that we talked about yesterday between a buyer and a seller. That's arm's length. Between me and my client, that's not necessarily, so I can be what's called a gratis agent. Anybody done that yet? It's not fun. No deed goes unpunished, or no good deed goes unpunished. I'm doing one right now for a buddy of mine. Very reduced commission. Went to high school with him. We've been friends since we were 6 years old. And I've probably had more issues with him and his wife than anybody else. Yeah.
It never fails.
Yeah, it never fails.
The one that you give a good discount to is the one that gives you the most trouble.
Yeah.
People who pay full price are the least maintenance.
Yeah. Said no good deed goes unpunished. It got actually to the point at one point where I literally told him, you need to go get an agent because I'm not losing a friend over this. And he called me back 10 minutes later. He's like, dude, my wife's just hard-headed and, she's kind of like you. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. What'd you just say? I'm not sure I like what you said. He's like, oh, she just says her mind and, we're cool, everything. And now we've got a closing date and all that, so it's worked out really well.
Are you going to help them with the purchase of their,
No, they're moving to Arkansas. He got a job transfer.
say then you could just do that, but make the commission on it?
Oh, yeah, I would make the commission on the other side. No, I'm just helping this guy because literally we were third grade is when we met. So we've been friends 45 years, something like that. And, hey, I'll help you out and let's get it. So I'm really torn because here I'm helping a buddy of mine move away. I said, I'd like to see you never sell your house, but unfortunately you got a new CEO job of a company in Arkansas, which kind of seems redundant or mutually exclusive, that they're, what somebody said yesterday on Facebook, they saw a smart car pass them with Kentucky plates. Seems a little
Do you negotiate for like a referral?
ironic. No, I didn't even want to get involved. Just let them go down there and buy. That way, if nothing happens, I don't ever want to get accused of, which his wife has already done, you know. Um, determining the listing price. How do you guys determine the listing price? Trick question. You don't. They do. All right. There was a question in one of the brokers classes the other day. Can we refuse listing because of the client's unbearable, or what's the word I really want to, unreasonable in their price? Have you guys had that issue? I have before turned down at least 2 or 3. I can think of right offhand where they're like, I want this price no matter what you say. And it was like 20,000 above the comps. And we bickered probably 2 or 3 days about the listing price. And finally I said, you know what, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. And I ended up not listing. I have no idea what he ever did, if he got another agent or not. We pulled comps, and comps showed one price. And here was his discussion. I'm moving, I want to pay my house off. I go, the mortgage, and I've got 3 credit cards I need to pay off.
What's that got to do with?
That was exactly my question. I said, you understand that what you owe on credit cards has nothing to do with the value of your home. He's like, yes, but this is my only shot to pay him off. I got to pay him off this way, and this is how I want to do it. I want to list it at 165, and like the highest house in the neighborhood was like 147. And I said, okay, you know, the average is like 142, 143. 147 is the highest anything sold for in the last year, and you want to be 165. That's what the number I need. And I said, well, really, that's the number you want, not the number you need. And we ended up saying, going our separate ways and list it. You know, that's not reasonable. So,
I haven't run into that yet, but I think I'm gonna agree to it just to get the listing, get a little bit of exposure. But it sounds that, like, in these circumstances, that if we don't get so many showings per week, then we have to drop the price, like on a, like, get reevaluated every couple of weeks.
all right, that's actually, you redeemed yourself, because I was going to yell at you, but you redeemed yourself there at the very end with that. One of the things that I'm a big proponent against was the first part of your statement of, I think I'm going to do it to get exposure. And I'm sure you've heard my example about the bad food in the restaurant. Who do you yell at? The waitress, who had absolutely zero to do with the cooking. And I know I've caught myself doing this before, driving by the same house month after month after month after month, and see the agent sign in the yard and go, well, that agent can't sell shit. Without really thinking and catching myself going, oh, maybe it's not the agent. It potentially is the cook in that deal who's causing the problem, and the one that's getting the bad press is the agent. So one of the things I've often told my agents is, you know, that may not be a theory you want to subscribe to. Now, with that being said, you redeemed yourself at the very end by saying, and I have done this before, is a predetermined price downgrade. You know, we're going to start at 146. If we don't get so many showings in the first 3 weeks, we are going to negotiate now that it's going to drop to 142, and then in 2 more weeks so-and-so, until we can start seeing the number of showings come up, and eventually hope you can balance that price with the number of showings. You know, up here 0 showings, and as you come down, you start to see 1, and then maybe 3 or 4, and then once we have 2 or 3 showings in a week, that tells me we're pretty close to where the market thinks it should be, and hope that number's higher than what they owe.
Are we, as agents, able to kind of like fire the client and just say, like, let's say they do a 6-month listing, and 3 months we can't get them to drop the price, we're not getting any showings, and we don't want that bad exposure per se? Are we legally able to just be like, look, this isn't working for me anymore?
Are you legally able to fire your client? What's the answer? The answer is you are most certainly able to ask to be fired, because remember, it's a mutual release. All right? I have never been involved in a deal where I wanted out and the client said, no, I'm not letting you out. I have been involved the other way, where the client said, I want out, and I said, no, you're not getting out. Mainly because I had money in the deal with a sign. This was a commercial deal. I had $900 into the sign. We had a couple of showings that had been out there, and I literally told the guy, no, I'm not letting you out because potentially we got an offer maybe, and I want to recoup some of my investment. As it came to fruition, the offer never came through, and the seller and I negotiated that he would reimburse me for the sign that I put up there, and then I would sign the mutual release. All right? But yeah, certainly you could go to them and go, I can't do this anymore. I want out. And they ought, and I told somebody in class the other day, by the time that you're wanting a divorce, usually your spouse is too. 90% of the time. Don't laugh. You're talking to the guy that's an expert in this. All right? 90% of the time, if you're to the point where I want to fire the client because he is not allowing me access to the property, or he hasn't lowered the price, or he's not been receptive to any of the feedback from the other clients, he's probably on the other side thinking, agent's not doing me justice, yada, 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 and the mutual release is really pretty easy to get. Hey, I want a release. All right? And now they've got this new one. Have you guys seen that? They've actually got a release, a full release, and then they got this one that's off the market, where you actually take it off the market from being marketed, but you're actually still under contract that you would get paid if something happens. It's a really weird thing. It's called, released versus withdrawn. You can withdraw the property from the MLS, but they're still under contract. That's typically what you want to do. You want the mutual release where you guys completely sever ties and all of that and go away from that whole thing. So determining the list price is something that you want to give to them. What you should do is go with the comps. And your comps, by the way, better come in the form of a range. You can't really show them that the comp's 128.5 because that's an appraisal. Comps show this between 124 and 128. Where do you want to be? And that's when they usually say 145. See, that was a funny joke, and you guys didn't get that at all.